Okay, good morning, everyone. It's Friday, September 23rd, and this is the Planning, Housing, Economic Development Committee. We're convening today to take up 3 proposed zoning text amendments. Again, I want to apologize for my lighting. Councilmember Joando, as he has disclosed, has a sports injury and he's going into surgery this morning. So he will not be able to join us. He's probably under the knife right now. We wish him the best and all eager to see him dropping 3-pointers before too long once again. We have 3 packets and our legislative attorney, Lavu Nadeau, has prepared our first. So we'll start with work session number 1 on ZTA 2207, and that is about residential multi-unit low density optional method development in the R30 zone. Lavu, why don't you take us away?
So I actually realized that Councilmember Friedson is the lead sponsor on this one. So I don't know if you wanted to say a few words before I dive into it.
Fine idea.
Yeah, appreciate it. The good news is it's not very controversial. I appreciate your co-sponsorship, Chair Reamer, and also Councilmember Joando is also a co-sponsor, as well as Councilmember Hucker, Council President Albanaz, Council Vice President Glass, Councilmember Rice. Councilmember Navarro, Councilmember Katz, and I have put this forward. It is a really exciting project. Chair Remo, you'll note your strong support and significant efforts related to the Emery Grove project, specifically with the baseball field and some of the other aspects of that major project. This is a huge undertaking, and this is specifically related to the housing and zoning piece of the Emery Grove project, which you'll recall many of us were at the Juneteenth celebration where this project was kicked off. It's a multifaceted, multi-layered project, and ultimately, it's really part of the county's restorative efforts, restorative justice efforts. And when we talk about the remembrance and reconciliation efforts, Chair Reamer, that you have really led on and the council has put forward, this is one part of it. And this zoning text amendment will allow for the type of housing, the type of redevelopment, and the type of project that we want to make sure that we recreate a community that was, in many ways decimated by urban renewal. And so I'm really excited about this, really appreciate everybody's support on it, and really look forward for this council and the county executive all working together with the community to deliver what is going to be a critical project, and I think a model project for the region and the rest of the country.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. It's important context here. And as you noted, many of us were there for an important community kickoff at the church there in Emery Grove, Reverend Warner presiding, and we had an incredible event where we learned about, and we previously known, but we talked about how urban renewal in the 60s resulted in many families leaving Emery Grove, families that had been there for generations. And this is a community that had persisted through racial oppression in Montgomery County for generations. And when urban renewal came in the 70s, auspiciously to improve the conditions, what ended up happening was displacement, and those families left the area. But one of the exciting things in this project, our Housing Opportunities Commission is working closely with the community, and they are in contact with families who previously left, and many of them have expressed their interest in returning. And through this development process, we're really optimistic that we're going to, address some of that injustice. And it's a credit to HOC and their vision and their know-how. It's one of the best housing authorities in the country. And the kind of skills that they bring to the table are really so important and valuable to the community. So appreciate Councilmember Friedson and your co-sponsors for taking the lead to craft this zoning text amendment, which will ensure that the large-scale development vision for Emory Grove, will happen just as it's needed, as we need it to happen. And what this community will hopefully transform in a very positive way, in a way that this time has a lot of community support and positive outcomes. So
appreciate that. I just want to note also, you mentioned Housing Opportunities Commission. Habitat for Humanity is also a major partner on this particular project. So I wanted to acknowledge them. They've been a real key partner, particularly on the home ownership side, which is really something that HOC doesn't do and really isn't set up to do. And Habitat for Humanity has been a real leader, on that. So I'm really excited about that. I will say, I think this is not just a model for this particular project, but I think the idea of greater diversity of housing types, of providing for standards for open space and optional method development, the flexibility of having different types of rooftops to create different levels of compatibility within communities. There's a lot here that I think would be helpful in other contexts as well, but we can't help but talk about this particular project because of how important it is for the county and how exciting it is and how many people are involved in it. So I just wanted to note that, and I appreciate, I know the planning board has some what I would consider to be modest recommendations as well. So I just appreciate everybody's work on this and really looking forward to moving it forward.
Absolutely. And I'll just ask, when it goes to full council, if we could include testimony that we received. I believe we received testimony from HOC at least, if not Habitat as well. Just include that in the packet so that I'm not sure it's clear to the public what the origination of this is. Of course, it's a change that will apply across the county, but I think we could make it a little clearer what we're hoping to achieve here. So great. Let's proceed.
Thank you. And my favorite soapbox is that every ZTA applies to the whole county. So thanks for mentioning that. But I will look for that written testimony to include in the council packet. So we received a RESJ impact statement from OLO that showed a favorable impact on racial equity and social justice in the county because it increased the supply of affordable housing units. OLO did note, which often comes up when we talk about affordable housing, looking for ways for the council to create incentives for building of larger MPD units, so 3+ bedrooms, so you can actually fit entire families. So as background for the CTA, the existing standards for the apartment building type in the R30 zone are pretty difficult. For example, the maximum height for an apartment building is 35 feet, but for a detached house or a duplex or a townhouse, it's 40 feet. So this CTA sort of goes through all of the different R30 zone standards and makes it possible to build an apartment building if the developer is going to be requiring 30% MPDUs, which is of course higher than we usually require. So first is site coverage. So the planning board will be able to increase site coverage to 30% of the site's usable area if the planning board finds that they're providing 30% MPDUs and that the increased site coverage is necessary for redevelopment. And then, of course, that there's still adequate open space for recreation and stormwater management. The second standard being changed is the parking setbacks for surface parking lots. So two things are being changed here. First, the setback will be 10 feet because otherwise, if the abutting property was a residential detached house, the setback could be as large as 35 feet, which is a pretty big setback for an apartment building. But screening will be required under 653C6. So that section of the screening requirements requires fencing and canopy trees and shrubs. As Councilmember Friedson was noting, that this is something that will make these apartments compatible with the neighboring homes despite having that reduced setback. The other change is that the planning board can reduce the front or side street setback for the surface parking lot if certain conditions are met, including that the reduced setback is necessary due to a unique site constraint, and that the applicant is going to provide perimeter planning and landscaping and vegetation and stormwater management, again, to make sure the development is compatible with the neighborhood. And last, as I noted in my example earlier, increasing the maximum building height from 35 feet to 45 feet for an apartment building type. And I'm actually going to share my screen here. Can everybody see that?
Yep.
Okay. Oh, sorry. One more change in the ZTA is that it's going to take the existing open space standards and make them standard method standards, and then create optional method standards. So I brought up this picture of the different types of roofs that exist, because one of the amendments that the planning board is recommending is only allowing the hip roof and gable roof type. What this will do is, if you look at the mansard and the gambrel, you'll see that you could add an extra floor into the roof, and that was not the intention. The intention of the additional height is to make sure that they can have these roofs that look more compatible with existing homes without also giving an additional floor. So these apartment buildings will still tend to be 3-story apartment buildings if we make, and as long as the ZTA limits it to hip roof and gable roof. So that's one of the amendments that's before the PHED committee.
Okay. I assume that works for everyone involved, so.
Yes.
One of the other amendments planning board proposes that council staff also supports is clarifying the type of screening that's required. So if you go to the section on perimeter planting, some types of screening apply if you abut a residential zone, and some if you abut a non-residential zone. Planning recommends using the standards for non-residential zones because they're a bit more lenient, and also clarifying that that's required regardless of the abutting properties. So that is the second amendment that's before the PHED committee.
Okay.
And lastly, the planning board had asked for clarification about whether the 30% MPDUs are going to be based on just the new construction, or whether it could retroactively apply to existing units. So an example here is if you already have some units and 15% of them have MPDUs, do they need to add another 15% or a whole new 30%? So the clarification that council staff recommends is under specifications for parking setbacks. It says the associated development must provide 30%. Consistent with other changes made in the ZTA, council staff recommends saying the application is providing a minimum 30%. The intent here is it's the new structure that must have 30% MPDUs. So there's two different scenarios where this will play out slightly differently depending what's already there. So if you have an existing development that already has 15% MPDUs, the new structure will still need to have 30%. So let's say the first building had 100 units with 15 MPDUs, and now they're building 100 more units. They would need 30 MPDUs in the new structure, and it's only counted. If you think of math with your numerator and your denominator, the denominator is only going to be the new building, not the entire application. And where this becomes really important is if you have an existing development that has no MPDUs. So you have a building with 100 units, none are MPDUs, but they want to take advantage of the CTA. The new structure would have to have 30% MPDUs still, but only counted out of the new structure, because otherwise you'd have to have 60% MPDUs in the new building to make up for the existing building. And that wasn't really the intent when this was drafted.
Yeah, I'll just, I appreciate the clarification from Ms. Nadeau and council staff. That was the intention. So we neither want to give somebody credit for something that they're not really doing, nor do we want to penalize somebody for, a large development where they're only making, an application for a small proportion of that. Neither of those seem fair, both to the applicant and to the public interest here. So I think council staff's recommendation is, what I think makes the most sense. It's an important clarification.
Works for me.
And that is it for the amendments to the CTA.
All right. Well, dry, technical, boring, but a really thrilling, meaningful, powerful project that this is part of. So thrilled to be able to support this and look forward to seeing it moving forward.
And now I know what a hip roof and a gable roof is.
Yeah, and a mansard roof.
Yeah, no, appreciate it. Thanks for everybody's work on this. It's simple here, but it took a lot of work behind the scenes to figure out how we get to a good place. So thanks for everybody for their efforts.
Awesome. Can't wait to be there for groundbreaking. Hope I'm still invited. All right, let's go. Without objection, all in favor, show of hands. Okay, Councilmember Chouin, of course, being absent today. All right, thank you. This is a good item. Let's move to the next.
So the next ZTA is 2208 Commercial Residential Zones MPDUs. So this CTA is going to make it clear that the MPDU provisions apply in the CRN zone and that site plan review is going to be required for those projects. The RESJ impact statement was little or no impact because it's just clarifying what the county's already been doing. So as some background here, in October 2018, the council passed ZTA 1806, which gave height and density bonuses if you had MPDUs. And there are several MPDU sections, which I put on page 2 going into page 3 of the staff memo that I won't bore you by reading through all of. But when this issue was raised, there was a project that came before planning board that had a piece of the project was in the CRN zone. And there was a question as to whether they could apply the height and density bonuses because it wasn't clear in the zoning code that that's what council intended. So council staff, in conjunction with the county attorney's office, actually reviewed both the zoning ordinance and the legislative history and agreed that it was a bit unclear, but that it did not appear that council intended to not allow MPDUs in the CRN zone. And the real issue was that there is no optional method in the CRN zone. And it was clear that MPDUs are supposed to go through optional method or at least go to planning board, because otherwise they would go directly to DPS for DPS to do those calculations. So what this ZTA does is it clarifies that the MPDU standards do apply in the CRN zone, and going forward, they will go through site plan review. I want to note also to address any community concerns, the height compatibility standards that are in section 418, I believe, would still apply. So you're still going to make sure you have height compatibility with those neighboring residential structures. There's a couple amendments planning board proposed that council staff recommends approval of as well. First is explicitly stating that projects in any of the CR zones can get increased density and height under the MPU provisions. It's sort of a weird legal trick whereby only calling out one, you might accidentally imply that the other 2 zones aren't allowed, which was not the intent. So it'll be rephrased to just say in all the zones you can have, in all the commercial residential zones, you can have MPDUs. The second clarification is to require site plan approval for all applications that develop under the MPDU provisions. The reason for this is planning staff noted that there are actually CRT properties where optional method might not be triggered because the FAR is low, but they might still want to do MPDUs. So we might as well capture those as well. So again, instead of explicitly saying in the CRN zone, just saying site plan approval is required for all applications that go through those MPDU provisions. And then lastly, there is a density table at 453C that says the CRN density is whatever density is mapped. So just adding a note at the end of that table to note that the density can be increased above those limits if using the NPU provisions. So just some minor technical clarifications there.
Yeah, I'll just know I'm the sponsor of this, but I really carrying the water here for the staff and the attorneys who felt that this was an important clarification. And so I have nothing to add. This is a fairly dry technical change here, but a meaningful one in terms of legal proceedings and making sure that there's consistency across the zoning code, that we reflect the intent of the prior council's efforts on zoning changes. That's the reasoning for this. It was brought to us. I offered to put it forward. Appreciate the clarifications from the planning board and think that this is a non-controversial technical change to the zoning code.
All right. Well, sounds good to me. Let's make it happen. Anyone need to make a comment? All right. If you do, please share. Otherwise,
so our last ZTA today is ZTA 2209.
let me just say, Council Committee recommends that last ZTA. Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks.
And I'll make a note that Councilmember Jawanda was absent.
Right.
So ZTA 2209, accessory structures use standards. So this one, actually, Chair Reamer, you are the lead sponsor. So.
Yeah, still going to need you to explain it, but the basic idea here is we're trying to allow for pool enclosures to make pools a more valuable feature for a homeowner. Something where they could use them potentially year round, or perhaps with more privacy. And there's some protections built into this to ensure that they are not unsightly by requiring them to be glass or transparent. And there is a case that helps us to think about this. A family that wants to build a pool enclosure, and they have an aging relative who they would like to be able to use this for therapeutic services, or therapy, essentially physical therapy. So due to the zoning code, they can't, and of course this would apply countywide. So this is something that we'll keep our eye on, and I think it'll be again allowing people to do something that frankly they should be allowed to do. So can you take us to the details, please? Thank you.
So for this one, I'm going to actually start with hold on. I'm going to start with the PowerPoint because I understand that it's a bit hard to picture what these look like. Or at least it was for me when I first heard about it.
Yes. I'm glad you did that, frankly.
So this is what a pool enclosure is. So it is a glass, or I guess it could be plastic, but it is a clear structure and you move it manually. I watched too many YouTube videos about it, but you can manually open and close it. I have heard that it is pretty quiet, the opening and closing. It's not a large, loud motor or anything like that. So here are some examples of what they can look like. There's a much smaller one. So that's what a pool enclosure is. I'll leave on this one. I think it's the best picture. So the OLO submitted an RESJ impact statement and said this would have little or no impact on racial equity and social justice in the county because it's going to apply to all single family detached residential developments. As background, there were a lot of meetings with DPS about this one because just recently, I believe in January, the council passed a ZTA that clarified that accessory buildings cannot exceed 50% of the footprint of the principal building or 600 square feet, whichever is greater, because we had a court case where that came up and it was an issue. And this, of course, would be an exception to that rule that the council just established. but specifically just for pool enclosures. As noted by Chair Reamer, the idea here is you can use your swimming pool year round when it's raining, when it's snowing. And again, it can be open or closed manually. There are no restrictions on here though on whether it has to stay open or stay closed. That's just an explanation of the mechanics of how it works. So the way the ZTA was drafted, because a pool enclosure must be at least the size of the swimming pool, you could have a situation where you have a small house on a bigger lot, and so you wouldn't be able to meet that accessory building standard using that 50% or 600 square feet. So the ZTA changes the 600 square feet to 1,200 square feet. In addition, as drafted, the maximum height is going to be 7 feet. As a quick note here, under the county code, a private swimming pool has to have a fence of at least 5 feet. So these structures will be slightly above the height of the minimum required fence. And that was why it was important to note that it's transparent or translucent, just so there's a bit less of an effect on any neighboring properties. The language was also drafted pretty carefully to make sure that a property owner doesn't install a swimming pool with a small pool enclosure just so they could get a larger additional detached structure, such as a garage, which kind of goes into which one you build first. The idea being all the other accessory structures still need to meet what the original standard was. And then lastly, I want to note that Chapter 51, which is all about swimming pools, will still apply. So this isn't changing anything about whether you need a fence, whether it needs to be locked, any of the safety standards. All of that is still going to apply, which DPS enforces. And then lastly, I know this is something Planning Board had noted, so I wanted to make it clear again that this also does not exempt a property owner from the lot coverage and the setback requirements. One note here is if right now, if you have an unenclosed in-ground swimming pool, that pool does not count towards your lot coverage. So it is possible that there will be some property owners who have a swimming pool, but will not be able to enclose it because now that you have a structure, you would be going over your lot coverage. So not everybody.
When I say that, that doesn't make any sense if we think about it, right? What would be the rationale for that?
Well, we're not real uptight about this, but I do have to put in a word for the idea that the development standards in our zones are supposed to serve, I think, two basic purposes. One is essentially aesthetic. Will things that get built be compatible with what's around them? And that's why we have things like setback requirements. Now, you might or might not think setback requirements are particularly important, but there's a logic there, right? Keep things in a single family detached neighborhood, having the structures on the lot being set back from the lot lines prevents it all from sort of being cheek to jowl, crammed up against each other and creating what I guess at least some people would say is an inharmonious pattern of development on each lot and its relationships to its neighbors. Second purpose that these standards serve is essentially environmental, to limit the coverage on the lot and the total amount of imperviousness. So I think where you're talking about a lot coverage requirement and a swimming pool, aesthetically speaking, a swimming pool is typically, obviously, most of it's below the grade. It kind of comes up to the level of the ground. If you enclose it, then it's as though you've built a building. And in principle, at least, if you take these ideas at face value as to what the purposes of the development standards are, I think a structure that's right up against the lot line is, at least theoretically, offensive for the same reason putting a garage or a house right up against the lot line would be. So that's my best defense of it. But I think it's, as I say, we don't have any religious views on this subject. We're just trying to do our best to faithfully keep the ideas in the
subject. Thank you. Appreciate that. I was thinking of the lot coverage rules, not as much from the aesthetic, but as more from the stormwater, impervious issue angle, which is once you put a pool in, you've already done what you're going to do. From that perspective, I hear what you're saying about a different perspective on the question, which is sort of masses on the property, I guess. I guess if you had a small property and then you had a pool and a backyard ADU and a garage, it's a compound. I guess it's good.
Right. And the question becomes, if you can build an enclosure over your swimming pool that's right up against the lot line, then why can't you build a garage?
So is that what this does? Is it just focuses on the setback? It's not affect. I was understanding that the question is whether this counts towards the total lot coverage as opposed to the setback.
Well, but I mean, we view this as just trying to stay consistent with the other development standards that apply to every other kind of structure. And those include lot coverage, setbacks, et cetera. If you want to deviate from them, it's not a big deal, but we thought that you should at least think about whether or not you want to create inconsistencies in the development standards as they apply to different types of improvements on the property.
And the ZTA itself is not changing setbacks and lot.
Right.
All the ZTA speaks to is that maximum footprint. It was just something we wanted to note so that it's clear that just because you're getting this larger footprint does not mean you now get to change your setback and lot coverage requirements.
Yeah. So I would say I don't think I will recommend a change to the way it's drafted, but if a future household is experiencing an issue here and they come back and watch this, perhaps they'll see this conversation and say, maybe we do need a change. And then they can come talk to their council member, see what people think.
And then there are two proposed amendments before the committee today. The first, planning board expressed a concern that a person could build a very small, like inflatable kiddie pool and then put a 1,200-foot enclosure over it, which was not the intent. So requiring that this would be for in-ground swimming pools, which works because an above-ground swimming pool couldn't have a 7-foot structure, presumably, because you wouldn't be able to fit underneath it. So clarifying that it's for in-ground swimming pools. So
we only want classy swimming pools to have coverage. Is that the idea, basically?
I think the idea was so we don't use a loophole that we had just closed with the last ZTA, although that'd be a pretty clever homeowner with quite deep pockets. So the second amendment was received from Francois Carrier, who represents the family that had first brought this issue up, requesting that the height be increased from 7 feet to 8 feet. I guess so. Manufacturers of some models of these, they're not custom builds, so actually prefabricated, and they range from 7'6" to 7'10". So just amending the ZTA to allow 8-foot structures because that's consistent with what's on the market.
Nice. I agree to that. Is that okay, Councilmember Friesen?
Yes.
All right.
And that's all.
Okay.
That's the ZTAs for today.
So is there a total size limit here? Or yeah,
1,200 square feet.
1,200 square feet. So that's 10 by 12. Right?
Yes.
So, that's not the biggest pool. I mean, I think you're not going to get a large backyard pool with a really large enclosure over it. You're talking about, so I think this is contained. I think we're talking about small pools, generally speaking. So hopefully that's comfort to some people. Okay.
Also, I should note it depends on the size of the house factors in too, because it's 50% of the footprint of the house or 1,200 square feet, whichever is greater. So depending on the size of your lot and your house, that sort of determines what size your pool enclosure will get to be.
Yeah, but it's whichever is greater, not whichever is smaller. So,
Sure.
It could actually allow you a larger.
You can go larger.
If you have a very large house with a very large pool, you could have a very large structure.
Oh, so it's not
50%. Yeah, because if you
or
have
50%. Well, no, but
So if your house was, let's say, 3,000, does that make
you could
sense?
have a 1,500 square foot pool enclosure, right?
If you had a very large house, you could end up bigger than the 1,200 square feet.
Yeah, so, I mean, the way you were describing is you would cap it at 1,200 square feet, period. The way that it's drafted, it's written 50% of the principal structure or 1,200 square feet, whichever is greater. The way you're describing it would be not to exceed 1,200 square feet. I just want to know that because
that's a good.
we're in a public hearing here, and the way that it was described was, I just wanted to clarify that point.
I hate to make things up on the fly. I'm not saying, personally, I'm not sure I'd be averse to a 1,200 square foot max. I don't think we want people building 30-foot, enclosures for pools that are 30 feet. And I'm trusting I did the math correctly there. That 1,200 square feet is 10 by 12. Maybe. Is Ben still on? Ben, you're good with these kinds of things.
So don't look at me for math, please.
Or maybe Victor. This is
10 by 12 gives you 120.
Thank you.
So
it's not.
I think the one thing to note here as well, just while we're comparing all of this, if an applicant wanted to do an enclosure and it was attached to the house, think of like the Florida lanai style, that doesn't even come up in this conversation because that structure is part of the principal. So this is also fully a detached structure. So I think as it's written is what we as a planning board reviewed and found to be reasonable.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, let's leave it there. That's a good conclusion.
And I also have Victor here from DPS as well, since we work closely with them on this one and the last accessory structure one. I don't know if you had anything to add, but wanted to note that he was present.
So just real quick.
Glad he was here.
Just real quick. I just want to. I'm missing the words here. Glom on or talk about some of the things that Casey. Yeah, there we go. Some things that Casey had talked about in terms of aesthetics. We often at DPS get complaints from constituents about aesthetics in general. It looks ugly. I don't like it. It's not compatible. However, we can't write a citation based on those subjectivities. So it is very important when we're in general writing these ETAs to talk about those specific objects and criteria that we can utilize when we're gathering our evidence when we present to the district court judge, as we are supporting the words that you guys put into law. So it is important that we continue to think about those things like height, setback, and specific the examples that were brought forward in the previous ZTA where Levy brought up the roofs, just so that when we go before the district court and we defend the things that you put in writing, we are able to qualify and quantify them with words that are not, aesthetics, because we often, I would say on a daily basis, get maybe 5 to 10 complaints about how ugly a structure is and how they believe that structure should be taken down. But we don't have certain points to be able to point to say, yes, we agree with you, because that's just not specifically written in the code. And as far as the kiddie pool issue, we don't have a problem with that. When we go before the judge and the district court, it's all about the preponderance of the evidence and the definitions that are used. So in Chapter 51, the definition of a pool is very broad. It says both in ground and above ground pools. So if someone went out to Walmart and brought a 10-foot pool and they stuck it under a structure and said, okay, now I'm building an accessory structure to cover my kiddie pool, we would bring forward our own evidence against the property owner, if they had, I don't know, a snow plow in there and a bunch of mulch and things, and we could specifically counter the argument that this structure is specifically being used as a pool structure. So, there isn't a problem with if the word in ground is used. That would help support our case if we brought that forward, because we could say, if a land use attorney brought forward, well, in Chapter 51 they say above and a below ground pool, then we could say, but in Chapter 59, where we do have jurisdictional authority, it specifically states in ground pool, and then we could utilize that as a qualifying factor when we're pursuing a violation. So just adding those things, but other than that, I opine similarly with Ben that we looked it over and we were fine with it. So that's all from DPS.
All right, that's helpful. Appreciate your sharing that. Okay, well then, sorry, Lou, did you recommend an amendment here? Or I think not, right?
Yes. So
this.
The two amendments are increasing the height to 8 feet and then clarifying that it's for an in-ground swimming pool. Those are the two amendments for the committee to decide on.
Right. Okay. Right. Okay. And I support those two amendments. Andrew?
Yeah, without objection.
All right. Okay. So show of hands in favor of the ZTA. All right. Unanimous members present. And we've concluded what might be the shortest PHED committee meeting in the last 4 years with 3 items down. All right. Thank you. Appreciate everybody. Have a great Friday. Thanks.